So if you're new to our channel or didn't watch the last video all the way to the end, you might be kind of confused about what exactly happened in that video. Well, if you did watch the end, you would see that we put a picture of Johns Hopkins in there because that was actually a medical trip that we were taking, and it was a spur of the moment one. Some of y'all asked about the girls and stuff like that. So no, they did not go on this trip because this was a quick there and back turnaround trip, and they would have been miserable.
Yeah.
So you may be wondering, how did we get to where we are right now? And that's where we're going to catch y'all up on now.
All right, so those of you who kind of know the whole health journey we've been on, with the whole, I'd had my Chiari surgery last year, went back to the doctor early this year saying, hey, things are not right, something is wrong, got dismissed, got my second opinion, more dismissed than the first one. So I started doing a lot of research and was trying to find someone out of state who was actually a specialist in the Chiari, because there was nobody in the state of Arkansas that could handle this. So in my research, Johns Hopkins kept coming up. There were two doctors there who were supposed to be the best. And I was like, okay, well, I had him check our insurance, and thankfully it showed that we would be considered in network with them, even though they're out of state. So that was wonderful. So I talked to my PCP and I was like, hey, this is what's going on. He said, I think you're very wise to be going out of state because, there's nothing that they can do for you here. So he was like, just tell me who I need to send the referral to. So I did. And then his nurse called me and she verified who I needed it sent to. And I was like, okay, cool. Well, this was on a Friday afternoon. So I gave it 2 weeks before I even tried to follow up with Johns Hopkins, because I was like, it usually takes 2 weeks for a referral, typically at a lot of doctor's offices that we've dealt with. Well, I call and they didn't have any of my information. She was like, oh, we may have got it. She's like, but honestly, if we don't have a case set up for you, she's like, there's no telling where that wound up. I was like, okay. So on the phone, this lady walked me through it and started a whole new case for me, and then sent me an email with everything that I would need, including a referral. So I called my doctor and I gave them the fax number she gave me to get that referral. And they also needed pictures of my most recent imaging, which wasn't a lot, but I'd had some done this summer. So I had to go get a disc from the hospital that did it because I'd forgotten to ask for one at the time, and uploaded that, had to upload some reports, had to re-upload some reports, and then followed up with them after a couple of days. They made sure they had everything, and they were like, okay, give us up to 5 business days, and then if you haven't heard back from us, call, because that should give the providers time to review your case. Well, I called back on, I guess, the 5th business day, and I called expecting to either be told, no, they've still got to look at it, put you in the system, something, or, put me out on an appointment, 6 months out. Well, I call, and the gentleman that answered the phone for their scheduling was like, let me pull it up. And he said, oh, yeah. He's like, you're going to see this doctor, and I can get you scheduled right now. I said, okay, sounds awesome. He was like, okay, well, we can see you next Monday in Baltimore. And I went, oh, okay. I was like, let me call my husband real quick and make sure that that's going to work out. Apparently he'd had some cancellations or something, but they wanted to see me a week from then. And I called him. We figured out we could work it out. And I called him back and I said, yes, for sure. Put me down for the appointment. But then we were sitting there going, okay, well, what are we supposed to do? Because, the shutdown was happening. And there was all this breaking news about all these flights being canceled and delayed and all this. And he was like, I don't know if it's a good idea for us to fly.
Yeah, whenever I was looking at flights, there was nothing that was direct there, and everything that was connecting was in Atlanta, and there was only like a 45-minute layover, so a little bit of delay, and it would have messed up the whole whole trip and we would have been stranded still several hours away. Because I was like, if we'd have gotten closer and gotten stranded, we could have just drove from there. That's one thing, but from Atlanta, we still would have had a very long drive up there.
I got off the phone with him scheduling, and I actually had gotten the number from him and called their office directly, because when you call, you just call like a main number for information, scheduling, all that. And then each clinic has their own number too. So I called the office and I was like, hey, so what all is this going to entail? I was like, is this just a visit, or is this imaging too? Or, what do I need to expect? Because I don't know how long we need to plan to be in Baltimore. And she said, it should just be an appointment. She said, I don't know that they could get you in for any imaging, that quickly. And I was like, okay, well, that helps. And she's like, I can put a note though that if there's something clear and they need imaging, they could get you in for imaging that day. And I was like, okay, that works. So we just kind of were like, well, we're just going to plan for, there and back, and, just to be there for the appointment. So we told you in the last one kind of how we got there as far as, driving. We had one day of sightseeing, and then Monday, it was the day of the appointment, which was great. Super nervous going in though, because all the mess we've been through with these other doctors. Yeah. So I was like, what if? And I was trying not to think that way.
Because my thing was, I was like, what if they have us drive all the way up here and just be like, oh, there's nothing we can do for you? And I'm just like, I am going to be livid.
Yeah.
I'm like, surely they would just be like, if they looked at the stuff and not, they'd be like, no, don't bother coming. We can't do anything for you. But I was like, we're going to drive all this way and they're going to do nothing.
Yeah, that was the fear going into it. And we got there a little bit early and went and sat down. But then the PA came and got us to take us back. And she sat down and she was like, okay, I'm just going to get some history from you. And we're like, okay, that sounds great. And she wanted to know like the onset of my symptoms. And I was telling her it was from, I didn't notice any of these symptoms before I had viral meningitis 10 and a half years ago now. And she was like, okay, well, did you have a lumbar puncture then? And I said, well, yeah, I actually had 2 because they suspected some things later also. And she's like, oh, okay, well, she was asking like if they'd done this or done that. And I said, no, this is literally all I had, but I never got better. Mm-hmm. And progressively got worse over time. And she's like, oh, okay. And then she was asking, how the symptoms progressed and everything. And then she was asking about my surgery, like pre-surgery symptoms, then surgery, and then after surgery. And I had uncovered just a few weeks back, whenever I was getting all my records together, because I send them to you online if you request it. And I didn't find my brain MRI from before my brain surgery. So I called. I'd already had missing records from one of the other hospitals, so I'd had to call about that too. And she was like, let me check. And she went back through everything and she said, you don't have a brain MRI. And I said, do what now? And she said, yeah, you don't have one in here. And I said, okay, so I did not. She's like, yeah, there was not one done on this date. She had my cervical, my neck MRI. She did not have the brain one. So I had brain surgery where my neurosurgeon didn't even do a brain MRI. It kind of floored us. Yeah. But I told this PA was asking about imaging beforehand. And I told her, I had the neck one and I didn't have the brain one. And her eyes got so wide and she said, what? She could not believe that there was not a brain MRI done. Because, I'm no surgeon, but just if you're going to go open up the brain, you might want to take a look beforehand. Yeah.
Because even though he could see the Chiari on the other MRI, if something else was going on up there, he had no clue.
Yeah.
Till he opened it up.
That explains a lot more, though, about what he was saying at my last appointment back in February about, checking, make sure I didn't have like MS and some of these other things,
Mm.
because he hadn't actually seen my brain.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, I mean, he saw it when he
well,
opened you
I
up.
mean, he knew that, but he hadn't seen any imaging.
It's like you went on a treasure hunt with no map.
I know. I was just like, oh no. Okay, the PA stayed in there with us for, oh goodness, it was an hour or more.
It was a little over an hour.
Just talking through everything, and she was like, I have my suspicions. She was like, but she's like, he still needs to come in here and see you and talk to you and everything, and then we'll see if kind of our thoughts about everything align. So she went and got him. He came in the room, and he had a med student with him, and he was looking at the images, and he was like, well, he said she was kind of filling me in on everything, and he said, sounds like, there's a lot, and it's, been kind of, he said, y'all haven't had a whole lot of imaging done, so it's kind of really hard to see, some of the things that I might need to see.
Yeah.
And I was like, I couldn't get anybody to order anything else. And he's like, that's fine. He's like, we can work with that. And he talked about a couple of things on it that he was like, I can't really, tell this, it might be still a little bit of the cerebellum, a little too close, all this kind of stuff. But he's like, I don't know, just based off this, I can't tell for sure. He did say, though, that my Chiari could either be, its own animal, like, most of the time Chiari is, where it's just a genetic thing, or there's a possibility that when they did that lumbar puncture, that I could have had a spinal fluid leak that never like sealed over, healed, whatever you want to call it. And he said there are cases of what they call secondary Chiari, where because that fluid is still leaking, that it's creating a drop in pressure, which I know one of our subscribers had actually asked if they had checked for pressure related issues. And I wasn't ignoring that at all. It's just I couldn't get anybody to do that in state. But he said that lack of pressure, he said it can cause very similar symptoms to what I've been dealing with. And it can make, I guess, put almost like a vacuum on it and pull the cerebellum down, so that it presents just like a regular Chiari, but it just happens over time after this original event, which, I mean, makes a lot of sense since that's when everything started.
Correct.
So he was like, okay, well, he said, first step is that he's like, we're going to have to get a lot more imaging. He's like, we're going to have to get a lot more specific imaging because I can't see anything on this other than, just basic stuff. And he's like, there's no way on here that I can tell if there is a leak or anything. And he's like, we're going to have to image your entire spine to be able to see that. He's like, and sometimes that's not even going to show up. He said, that's not all foolproof either. He also decided he wanted some very specific views of my neck to check for instability. Whenever I was telling him about the bobblehead feeling that I have sometimes, and like my head's too heavy for my neck. So he ordered all of that, and then his PA came in and she was trying to see if she could get anything scheduled the same day or even the next, and no luck. And I was like, that's fine. I was like, I just, whenever I was talking to the office, I just didn't know what to expect. And we explained all that, and she was like, okay, that makes sense. She's like, I'll just make very, very specific notes and orders and all that. That way you can get this done wherever you need to. They have about 2 or 3 different things that they are kind of looking at, trying to rule out, figure out where they're going to go from here. Because he's like, I've got plan A, plan B, plan C, basically. So if it's, if it's a leak, then it's fairly simple fix, honestly. Then there's other stabilization options that would include like going back into the original incision and having to install some hardware, if that's not the case, if it's not just a leak. I say just a leak because that is the lesser of like,
that would be like
evils.
Best case scenario.
yeah, to not have to get my head opened back up again. But he did make it very clear that regardless of, if this imaging shows something or if it doesn't, they are going to do something. They are going to help me. So even if and the other thing is that if this does not show that I have a leak, because he's not convinced that it will, they have something that they can do, a test that is called an ICP monitor. And that does involve going into my skull at some place and putting in like a monitor, a fiber optic type monitor. And you just basically spend a day in the hospital walking around doing normal things. And they see if there's spikes, dips in the pressure, whatever. Mm-hmm. And he was telling us another case that he'd had somebody that was out of state and nothing showed anything. So they scheduled their appointment to where it was a monitor one day, 2 days later, they had surgery scheduled. And he said they did the monitor, did not have to do the surgery. So I was like, if this doesn't show anything, then that's probably the route we need to go, even though the thought of that is just kind of, ugh. But
I don't know why that bothers her so much when it's just a little hole, when thinking that they like opened up the back. But for some reason, just the little fiber optic going in bothers her. It weirds her out more than them like opening the back of her skull up.
Being conscious, because that's not going to be like heavy sedation. That would be, some sort of local something. So that's what bothers me, is me being awake and knowing that this is happening, because they have to go through your skull. So, when they open anything up bone related, it's power tool type instruments. So
as long as they're using Milwaukee instead of Bauer. They're getting their stuff at Harbor Freight. We may need to look some up. No, I'm just kidding. We love Harbor Freight.
We do. But so that's what they left us with. And it was really crazy walking out of there like, okay, actually hopeful now, because it's not are they actually going to do anything? It's no, they're going to do something to help. Regardless if it's
just a matter, they don't know what until we can get the MRIs done.
Yeah, that's the thing. And knowing how MRI scheduling goes, it could be 2 days from now, it could be 3 weeks from now or more.
Yeah.
So it's just,
that's the only thing. And then plus just trying to get everything figured out and how that needs to be done to get it scheduled at the right places and all that, because with specialized imaging on the one, we've got to find a place that can do that. So
yeah, because we've already told you the issues with the specialist here. If there's nobody in the state that does all of the Chiari at testing and actually really knows what they're doing with it, then the tests that are very specific for Chiari, that makes you wonder.
Yeah. Because if there's no specialist here doing that, then how are the radiologists or the MRI people supposed to know how to do that?
Yeah.
Also, so it'll just be a matter of hopefully we can get things figured out. So we really don't have any more answers, but it seems positive, because it seems like he's not just going to give up and say deal with it if it's not something obvious like previous folks have done. It seems like he's going to continue till they can find it, because this is their specialty. So who knows, she may be an oddball case, but maybe they can figure it out.
Yep. So here's to hoping that we can figure something out, and hopefully it won't be too far out. Never know though. Never know. But we really appreciate all of the kind words, all of the prayers. Please keep the prayers coming, because it means a lot, and our family definitely appreciates all of you guys.
Absolutely. But that's all there is now till the next update.
Yep. So hopefully we'll have more for you soon.
Well, kind of an unexpected turn of events. So we got all of the MRI orders in hand exactly as the PA promised. And she actually is called to follow up because we had questions and everything about some of the orders.
Yeah, who does that?
Yeah.
What PA from a surgeon from Anesthesia calls you at 7 or 8 o'clock at night just to clear things up because they saw a message that you'd left before and they were busy? So after hours, when they're clearly offer at home.
Yeah.
She called the place within 30 minutes, getting everything lined out.
Yes.
Rewrote orders and resent
Yeah.
them to us that night to clarify because the folks in Arkansas just didn't get it.
So I was calling around to see who could do these MRIs because they are very, very specific.
Yeah.
Like, there's 4 of them. 2 of them are pretty straightforward, and 2 are very specific. There was one order in particular that I could not find a single hospital in the state who even knew what that was. I actually called some open MRIs.
Crazy.
And they didn't know what it was. One of them actually laughed about it, which was kind of disturbing. But she's like, I don't know what that is. But, I mean, that's not really the response I was expecting. But then I got that figured out. I had to call somewhere in Oklahoma that has an MRI machine that I called them first thing, and they said, oh, yeah, we know that. What's your insurance? Oh, yeah, we're credentialed with them. We can work with that. And I was like, okay, cool. So I was
and
like,
what's funny is she's like, nobody in Arkansas knew who it was. They're like, yeah, we get a lot of people from Arkansas over here.
yeah.
So
And then I was like, okay, well, I called one of the hospitals I've had MRIs at before, and they can do the other 3. So I'm like, okay, well, at least we don't have to go to state for one. So I call back to that hospital. I was like, hey, I need to schedule these. And she's like, hold on a second. She's like, they're from out of state. If they're not credentialed in the state of Arkansas, we can't take their orders. And I said, do what now? I mean, this is a neurosurgeon from an acclaimed hospital in the United States that, I mean, they are very renowned, but they won't do that. I called several other hospitals in Arkansas. No hospital in Arkansas will take orders from an out-of-state surgeon who's not credentialed with them.
Which is crazy.
Yeah.
And the other crazy thing is how hard it is for these out-of-state surgeons to be able to actually get credentialed and do things, because they basically have to get licensed to practice here just to do that. And it just shows you what a failing healthcare system we have, because not only can we not find the doctors and help we needed in Arkansas when we left, Arkansas don't even want to help you out when you come back with a more experienced person. And so major changes need to happen with that, because it shouldn't be that hard to get the help you need. Like I said, if Arkansas can't offer the specialist that you need to complete something, that's important. Okay, so the hospital just called to confirm the appointment that we actually just got scheduled about an hour ago. So don't remember exactly where we were, except for talking about how it's crazy how changes need to happen, because if you can't get the specialist you need in the state you're in and have to travel outside, it should at least be easy for those orders and stuff to be able to use in your state. Like I said, insurance didn't have a problem with it, because they actually allowed us to use the doctor out of state as in network, and all the MRIs and stuff are being covered, but that wasn't good enough for the hospital. They still wanted something different because he wasn't credentialed here, even though he's a neurosurgeon who's actually an instructor at their school of medicine and all that stuff. So, I mean,
it's insane.
It's crazy that that's the case, but you go into.
So I was like, well, if this won't happen, then our PCP is the one that actually referred us to John Hopkins. And I was like, well, let me just call them and see if they will write duplicate orders and send them themselves, because you know he'll be credentialed with them because they've sent stuff for me before. So there was back and forth with them, because I had to call, and then I'd heard back from the PA, and she had changed some orders, so I was giving them the additional ones. She got everything faxed in, sent in this morning, and got a schedule, and she called me with the schedule, and I was like, awesome, that's great. It was supposed to be December 8th, so not too far out, but a little bit. Well, Kevin has something going that day, so we were like, well, maybe if I call, they can get us a different day. If not, it's fine, we will make it work.
Even if they had to split them up some to just be able to get it done, because for one of them, I for sure need to be with her because of the type it is, but then the other ones, she could have managed on her own, and so that day I just have something at work that I cannot miss.
Yeah. So I called the scheduling office, and I'm like, hey, you just got me scheduled. My doctor called, but I was going to see if there was any changes. Plus, they were all 3 in the same day, so like one of them needed to be at the end of the other appointments, because it is one with contrast. And she's like, okay, hang on a second. She's like, well, I might can get you this afternoon. And I went, oh, okay. And she's like, hang on, I may only be able to get 2. and then she said something about maybe having to split some stuff up, and then she was like, hang on a second. We were on hold for like 5 or 10 minutes probably, and I was like, she's fixing to work some magic. And she comes back on the line, and she's like, yeah, come on in. She's like, if you can be here at 4, she's like, we'll do all 3 of them. She's like, I don't have the orders in hand because they didn't all come through. She's like, I'm fixing to call your doctor's office back to see because I told her they were open till 5. She's like, perfect. I'll try to call and get them. She's like, if not, can you bring those? And I was like, yes, we can swing straight through there, go get them. I knew that the nurse had already told me she'd have them ready for us. And she was like, yeah, no problem. She's like, just show up. And she's like, no metal on your body and all that good stuff. No rings, no earrings, you know, all the good things. And I was like, okay, cool. So we went I called the doctor's office first. And I was like, hey, would y'all have those ready for me? I was like, we're 45 minutes away. So it's not like super rushed, but if you could have them, that'd be great. And she did. And I checked over on to make sure they looked right, and she said she had just gotten off the phone with the hospital to clarify and to give them one of the orders to
everything that they needed. She made sure they had. So
yeah, she talked to me, and everything is good. I've got all the orders in hand, and we're fixing to go get 3 out of 4 of these knocked out. The other one is scheduled for after Thanksgiving in Oklahoma, on a day that I'm actually off work, so that worked out really good.
Day I'm off too, so
yes, they didn't have anything sooner, but that's okay. We'll make this work. But it's just kind of crazy because I wasn't expecting to do this today.
These 3 that were getting done today were the most important that the surgeon wanted ASAP. He said the other one's great too, but he goes, if we can get these 3 done quicker, that's even better. So
yeah, the brain one especially. The brain today is the brain, the thoracic spine, and the lumbar spine. And thoracic and lumbar are both without contrast. They have special views to check for the leak. But then the brain one is with and without contrast, and a Cide flow study as well. And then there's some special views that she put on there that I'm probably going to talk to the radiology tech about. That's the MRI tech that's doing it. But yeah, this is kind of crazy, and I wasn't prepared, and I'm trying to mentally prepare for being in that tube for a while. I'm not bad being in it. It's just I like to be prepared, and I wasn't prepared. So
and traffic is horrendous right now, so we're probably gonna have to go up, flip around, and come back because the turn lane was backed up all the way through the intersection.
It's not really a great spot for that.
No.
But this hospital was put in.
Well, there's a bunch of car dealerships down this same road.
But yeah, I told him I may or may not be feeling the best after this, but at least they'll be done, and I've got the whole weekend to recover because it is a Friday.
Yeah.
So I don't know, but
so hopefully the radiologist will still be in to read them tonight so that we can
read the report,
see it on her my chart to kind of see what's going on. But we're really curious because if it is a leak, that should be the easiest fix of them all.
Yeah.
And at least that would explain how all this mess started.
Yeah. So he wasn't convinced if it would show or if it wouldn't show on this, but it'd be nice if it just would show, and then we would have to have the whole monitoring situation, because that's a little, I don't know, it just kind of messes with my head thinking about that. But something about having a hole drilled in your skull. Yeah, and part of my hair shaved to do something.
But you got to think, for the surgery they took part of your skull away, so
I know, but just the thought of me walking around and being conscious while there's something sticking out of my head.
She'll look like a Borg from Star Trek.
Probably. But yeah, so this is where we're at today, and I mean, I really want to read that report because we'll have the images on disc where I can look at them, but I'm not trained to read that. I mean, I can kind of see basic structures on there with, my physical therapy stuff, but as far as anything, specific and actually brain related, that's not something that's in my wheelhouse at all. So yeah, I wouldn't know what I'm looking at if it's just images, but I'll upload them to their little system tonight, and
That's not to say we won't look at them. May not know what we're looking at, but we're at least going to take a look.
yeah, I want to see what it looks like, especially with the contrast, because like I said, I've never had that before, and it's supposed to like light things up is what they say. So I'm curious.
Yes.
So
Me too.
yeah, wish us luck, and wish me luck that this doesn't like make me sick or anything to my stomach. I don't really know what to expect. Some people have said it makes the contrast light makes them feel a little nauseated, but I don't know. Never been through it.
I've never had an MRI, so I don't have a clue.
I've had way too many.
A bunch.
Way too many.
So we're going to get off here, and hopefully we'll have some news for you soon.
Yep. Well, almost 2 hours later, and finally done. I'm exhausted.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we got there a little bit early, because we made pretty good time. We had plenty of time to go get the records and all that good stuff, and we knew we were going to be early. And I was like, well, we can get through admissions, check-in, all that good stuff. So got up there to the desk, and she had all my paperwork, and she was like, okay, well, you've got a balance for today. Are you prepared to pay that?
And I'm just like, good grief. We're already going through this mess. And the first thing they're asking for is money. I mean, I get they want it and all, but you would think with insurance and stuff like that, that you wouldn't have these big bills to go along with it. But insurance only does so much. And we have pretty good insurance. I mean, It allowed us to go out of state. Now, we haven't got that bill either yet. But, I mean, at least we had that opportunity to pick our own provider and things like that. And so she told us that. She's like, you got this, are you prepared to pay? And I'm just like, can we at least wait and see what insurance is going to cover first? And she goes, yeah, we can do that. She goes, do you want to go ahead and set up a payment plan? I'm like, well, I'd really like to see what the insurance is going to do first, because not knowing what exactly they're going to cover. I mean, I know they've got an estimate of what it is, but we have had in the past where they had an estimate, and we actually, well, whenever she had her brain surgery, we overpaid, and it took over a year to get refunded that overpayment. So now I'm just kind of like, let's wait and let insurance do their thing first, and then we'll do that, because I don't want to have to wait over a year to get my money back. Not saying this hospital would be the same, but I've just got a little bit of PTSD about that. That I really want to see what insurance is going to pay. I know we're still going to have a bill, because, I mean, that's just the way it is, but like I said, once we get that in, we'll decide if it's something we can go ahead and hash out, or if we'll get on a payment plan and pay them what we can each month. Because I know that depending on what's going to happen with her, if she has to have whatever kind of surgery, she's going to be off work, so we won't have her money coming in, plus we'll have the doctor bills. And so I'm just like, right now we're just kind of in survival mode. Let's figure out what's going on and get that, and then we'll work on figuring out how to pay all y'all people back. So after that, we got everything checked in, and then we went and sat in the waiting room, and then they called her back, and that's where I just waited, and the rest is hers to tell.
So I went back there, and it just so happened the other day when I was calling around to hospitals to see if they could do these specific MRIs. This is our preferred hospital for the MRIs. I've had them there before. They have a really nice machine. Everybody there is always so nice and helpful. And I talked to this one girl, and she answered tons of questions. She stayed on the phone with me forever. And she needed a little clarification about one wording thing, and I had gone ahead and called the PA about that, and that's what one of the things she had called me back about late that night. Because
this hospital, we actually, whenever she called, she actually got to talk to the technician that runs the machine. The other hospitals, she tried to get to them to be scheduling, or the receptionist, and they'd be like, well, let me ask, instead of just letting us talk. But actually at this hospital, they actually, when she asked to speak to a technician about particulars, they're like, yeah, let us go get one. And so they transferred us back, and it was to a different one at first, and she's like, I'm not quite as familiar with this stuff as this other one, let me get this more experienced person. And so that's how we got to hear about the technician actually talking to her on the phone, so she had a clue what was going on.
And she brought me back, and she was like, she's like, we're doing this, and this. And then I was like, yes. I was like, and I went into the whole explanation about, John Hopkins, and then my PCP. And she was like, oh, I talked to you on the phone. And I looked at her name tag. I was like, yes. Okay, cool. I said, I actually put your name in my phone so I would remember who I talked to. And she said, okay, yeah. And she remembered what we talked about. And then I was like, well, here's your clarification. She's like, okay, cool. I know that protocol. That is perfect. And then she looked and she's like, oh, she's like, she added this too. And so what it was is they were doing the lumbar spine, thoracic spine, brain with and without contrast, and then she added
CSF or sign,
a Cide flow study, which is a CSF flow study, and apparently that is an extra MRI.
So we thought we were going for 3, ended up with 4 here.
Yeah. And at first she was like, let me check and make sure we're authorized. She's like, if not, I will work on that while you're in there and it'll be fine and we'll get it done. And I was like, okay, cool. Now with the brain with and without contrast, did involve the IV with the contrast in it. I've never had that before. I'm not a fan of IVs, but it was fine. So they did my thoracic spine, my lumbar spine, did the regular brain without the contrast, then they did the flow study one, and then they did with the contrast because they couldn't have the contrast in for all the other images. So that took a really, really long time. They kept checking on me throughout on the little overhead speaker, are you okay? Yes. I was just ready to get it over with. And then it was funny because they knew how to do all the images. They knew to run all the protocols and everything. And they pulled me out and they were like, those looked really, really cool. They were like, we don't get to do these very often. She said, we were kind of geeking out about it. She said, and I wrote a lot of notes to the radiologist. She's going to be doing the report. She's like, because I figure they're not just going to assign any radiologist to do it, to read it. She said, they're probably going to set one specific person on there who's got the experience. And I was like, okay. She's like, she said, I figured I better write notes and I better send everything in. That way they aren't just like, they're running wild over in the MRI department.
I told Kimberly, I was like, yeah, you should tell them that we should be charging y'all for this as much fun as y'all are having with this instead of us having to pay.
Yeah, and then when she told me there was an extra one, I was like, oh, man, because that's probably going to add to the total. It's okay.
Yes. Yeah, because that was not in the total initially. They never even talked to us about that afterwards. So
yeah, so it may be a surprise. Maybe it'll be better than instead of worse. I don't know. You never can tell with insurance. Like,
was it buy 3 get 1 free?
Well, I just mean like maybe their estimates are off or something.
Yeah. You never know.
But it is what it is. So
yeah, because they were a little concerned at first about it, but we probably have one of the best PCPs around, and he is much like old school. He's like, he attached the orders from John Hopkins, said, use these for instructions. Here's my orders to do these. Make it so.
He wrote, make it so on there. So, I mean,
he's cool. Just like, pretty much like, they know what they're talking about. Y'all just need my signature on it, so make it happen. And that's what they did. So, yeah,
they were really cool. They were really helpful and friendly. And they were talking about how amazing the images looked and how you could see everything. I mean, I don't know what everything is. I don't know if it showed anything actually amiss or not, but because they're not the ones who read that.
Can you tell us a little secret and be like, you do enough of these, surely you know something.
Well, they don't do those very often, apparently.
Yeah, I know, but they see enough imaging. They probably know they just can't say. So
that's true.
Which I get.
They're not supposed to. But yeah, they were talking about how amazing it was and how awesome they could tell that this neurosurgeon was just by the in-depth orders and imaging and everything. And they were like, the fact that they wrote everything on here that they did, they were like, that is really helpful. They were like, if you ever have to go anywhere else for them, take your orders, because that told us exactly what to do and it was perfect.
Yeah, part of the stuff initially for the terminology is there's 2 different brands of machines or 2 different brands of MRI machines, and one uses one terminology, the other uses the other. Well, John Hopkins uses the other brand, so that's why the initial terminology was a little bit confusing. But as soon as talking to the PA, we were like, they didn't really know what it was. She goes, well, they may have this other brand of machine, so tell them this. And she actually changed that on the order, and they're like, yeah, we know exactly what that is. So yeah, worked out good. Just shows that they know their stuff, and we're pretty confident with them. I mean, I think that we're going to have good results. It's just a matter of time and
which I think
traveling back and forth.
less time now just because they were able to get us.
Yeah,
anyway.
I know. This is like Johnny on the spot. Like, yeah, y'all get over here and we'll get it done. I'm like, good.
We'll
Which
go.
that's the other thing that the doctor put on here, urgent orders. So they made it happen.
They did, and everybody that's been involved in the whole process with the nurses and doctors and the PA and everything, I've been making sure to thank them profusely every time I talk to them. They may get tired of me saying thank you, but it really means a lot to us because of, especially with the past, how we've been dealt with on all this.
Yes.
I mean, they are taking the time, they're taking the care, and like the lady on the phone earlier, she didn't have to work whatever magic she did, but she got us in today to do all of these.
Yeah,
and
I mean,
then
she
they
was
just did the
legit
fourth
probably on hold for, I would say 10 minutes. I know
Probably.
it was forever.
Yeah.
So, I mean, she could have just been like, nope, we don't have anything that's booked up. You're just going to have to keep your other appointment or we're going to split them up. But whatever she did, she worked some magic, and I guess everybody in there did too, because they got them all done.
Yeah, and they added that extra just right there.
Yeah. So, we still don't know any answers yet, but we'll get these uploaded to Baltimore where they can see them Monday whenever they come back to work. Who knows, that she may look at them over the weekend. You can never tell about her.
Yeah.
And then we've got the one that's in December, the first part of December in Oklahoma City.
Yes.
But they might get some answers from these where that one would just add 2. And so if it turns out where they get something from these and they're like, look, y'all are going to need to come back up here, then we may, if it times out just right, instead of going to Oklahoma City, just get them to do that MRI up there. That way it saves some travel time, because at least Oklahoma City is only 4.5 hours away, thereabouts, rather than 16. But I think as long as we can work it right, we're definitely going to fly next time.
Yes.
Like I said, we just weren't sure with everything like it was and all the delays and cancellations if that was going to work, which we explained that in our last video.
Which the other thing about that was too, it being a first appointment, you don't really know if they're going to need more imaging, if they're going to want to get it like stat ordered, or if they're going to want you to go home and get it done. Didn't know, I mean, how long the appointment would take or anything, honestly, either. So we really didn't know what to plan to be able to fly either.
Yeah, and plus I had a specific deadline I had to hit at work on Wednesday, and so if our flight would have been delayed at all, then I would have missed it, and there was no way I could miss it. But I knew if we were driving that we could make it, even if we were dog tired when we got home.
Yeah, this week has been weird and all of that. That's the best explanation I can have for it, is just weird since last Friday and today's Friday. But
it doesn't seem like it's been a week.
It does not seem like it's been a week. Like I went back to work on Wednesday and I was just like, it feels like Monday. It just feels like I had this major gap.
For me, Wednesday was Monday, because as soon as we got back, I had to go back to work for 5 days straight. Well, I ended up taking off today to go for the MRIs because she needed somebody to drive her after the one, but
so
that's where we are for now, and hopefully we'll have some more answers soon.
I'm really hoping so. I'm anxious to hear if this shows anything.
Definitely.
And I'm probably going to take a peek, even if I don't know what I'm looking at, just because I'm nosy. I mean, it's my images, so it's fine. It's not really being nosy at your own stuff, but it's...
In other words, she's going to look at pretty pictures, and maybe she sees something. If not, then it'll just look cool.
I mean, because there's, like I said, to a certain point, I can see some of the structures, but the brain stuff, I'm kind of clueless. Unless something like crazy lights up, like bright and shiny. And then I may be Googling, what is that?
Yeah, who knows? I mean, we may just see a stream of fluid shooting out of your spine, so...
If we see that, then we'll be like, okay, cool.
We know what it is.
Yep.
Okay, well, we'll have more for you later.
Yep.